Shas. So you would have been a great idea. And Rubla was thinking about it.
Which Rubla?
If he wants to come make a demonstration. He said he wants to think about it. I'm not sure what the recitation is. Okay, let's see the Gemara weiter. Ahu machta, there was a needle. That's right. I better check my audio just to make sure that I could hear the other one doesn't hear me. Testing, 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you. Okay, so Shusa. What's that?
We hear you.
Okay, good. Baruch Hashem. Kshisa. Kshisa literally means a pit. Rashi touches it as a pit, like the pit of a date, the knot of an olive, I believe. I think the Gemara is going to say that. And let's have a look, see over here. Yeah. And he says, the Mara says that it's not likely that a pit would have been able to navigate this route inside the arterial system. So it's likely more like a gallstone, is what the Mars learns. Kshisa, the shtakach b'mora. It was found in the Mora. Amr Ab Ashi, ki avinin be'Rav Kahana. When I was by Rav Kahana, Amar, he said, Ha vadai simpuna nakat vasai. This surely came internally through the arteries. Which is much easier to appreciate if we're talking about a gallstone than if you're talking about a pit that actually got inhaled by an animal. Avagav the loika navka. Even though if you would try to push it out through the arteries, it wouldn't. It's a bigger pit. It's not a skinny needle. It wouldn't go. It wouldn't fit. But mirbel hu de karavale. But if an animal's moving and it takes time, little by little, with the flexing of the animal, it could have possibly made it there. So he, like I said, he learns that it wasn't literally a pit.
At least it's round.
Yeah. So Kashasa Rasha's Garan Shel Tomorrow, Sampuna de Kaved Nokat, the all der Hakana Nichlasa. So if you want to suggest it came through the Kana and it worked its way down, it would be very hard. If it came through the Veshet, then Eino Ru'uli Nakiv Klum Velotzais Misham Velachse Velikonis Kan Derech Nekiv. A pit would never have been able to make it out of the Veshet into the liver system, so it must have come through the Kana. If you wanted to push it through a artery or a bronchial tube, it wouldn't go because it would be too snug. But over time, Mirval Huderavil al Yidei Nianua Shinanea Behema Balichasa Yamim Rabim. Since the animal's moving around and things are flexing inside, and this goes on, this doesn't happen in 5 minutes. It happens over time. It slowly gets pushed through, because it can't go out right away. So something that you shake. So whatever the case is, it would, even though it's a thicker thing, it would still be able to make its way around into the gallbladder, even though it didn't come through the stomach system. Now we're going to go a little bit off topic. Why is our lung called a reya? It lights up one's eyes. If one eats lung, it will make him be able to see well. Is it because if you just eat a lung plain, the lung tissue itself is good for your eyesight? Or because the spices that they normally use, those spices are good for your eyesight. Maybe they use carrots to season them, and the lung material, once it's seasoned, now the lung material itself takes on properties of healing. Tashma, the Amr Avuna Bar Yehuda, Avza bezuza. If you buy the whole goose, it's going to cost you a zuz. But if you buy only its lung, ba'arba, it will cost 4. Now that doesn't make sense. If you're going to tell me just eating a lung plain, it's not any seasoning involved, that heals you, so why would I pay for a rhea, linked bezuzah, buy the whole goose for a zuz, and eat the whole thing, and inside that will be the liver, will be the rhea, the lung. It must be that the reason why the rhea does barba is because it's obviously seasoned and its preparation is what makes it cost more. So it's obviously not the lung tissue itself that helps for the eyesight. It's the fact, the way they used to season it. I don't know how they used to prepare it in those days, but that's what did it. In Kavareya, what if the shaykhs, manipulating and moving around the liver, and then they find a hole in the liver, and there's a possibility that this wasn't there when the animal died. Rather, the shaykh by mistake his nail punctured it. Talinon or no talinon? Will you just say it was likely the shaykh's manipulation, or will you say that it's a possibility of a treifa? You are toila once it's manipulated. And I believe Rashi says, Uchumedumani, said Rashi. So Rashi is going out on a limb, and he's saying, it's not only bedavke the hand of the shochet as he was manipulating the liver, where you say the whole came acher mitzvah, but anytime there's a scenario that you could blame it on something, like a hole that could have been made by a knife, or he yanked it out hard and it made a tear, and you found a tear there, you'll always blame it on the physical damage that it got due to the manipulation, rather than say that this was a treifa. And we paskin that toilet. So talk to Gemara. Where am I up to? Right? Oh, here it is, okay. Amar Shmuel Baredi Rabbi Abba, my father, Meireshik Klida Rafram Hava. He was from the main announcers of Rafram, so when Rafram would say the shir, he would be the one he would be the human microphone that would broadcast it to everybody. So obviously my grandfather, obviously my father, Avo, knew Rafram's Piskei Halacha, he knew Rafram's Torah quite well. V'yamar, and he said Talinon, that you are Mekel. Amru Kamei Laha the Marzutra Bareder of Mari. They told us over to Marzutra, the son of Rav Mari, and he did not accept it. Amar Misharshe Kavosei de Avua de Abba Mustafa. Mishar says, I believe the halacha is like my grandfather. Da Talinon Bezev, because we are toilet in the Azev. What does it mean, Talinon Bezev? There's a funny MDY video on this, but Rashi tells us that Talinon Bezev, the Amar Perakama, we actually looked at on Daf Tes. Bezev, v'notlas b'dei. After the animal was shechted and the animal was dead, a ze'ev came and took the b'nei ma'ayim, and then the ze'ev decided it doesn't like it. V'echzir, and then it brought it back, kishen nekuvin. And there were holes in it. Now the question is, were these holes made by the ze'ev who grabbed the lung after the animal had already died? Or is it possible that there were holes in these lungs and the nails of the ze'ev also went into those same holes, but this could be a chash of a treifa? So we say, rather we say that this puncture was done by the ze'ev after the animal had already died. Murna, Pligiba, Rabbi Yosy bar Yosy, Virabana. Murna, Rashi says, Teilas hayoytze minareya v'nikva. So after the animal died, they saw a worm burrow its way out of the lung. So the question is, this something that we say could be a treifa? So Zok to Gemara. Murna Pligiba Rabbi Yosy bar Yosy, Virabana. Chad Omar Kodim Shchita Parish, and therefore we have to assume that it's a treifa. Chadam alacha shita parish. V'yochazol la'acha shita parish. We say it probably came after the shchita, or it punctured the lung after the shchita, and therefore it will be a kosher. Rabbi Shimon Amar Achati Nakev. So let's go back to the Mishnah, because now we're going to go all the way back to the Mishnah. The Mishnah says, Reya shenikva ishachasra. If the reya has a hole in it, or it's missing, and we said chaser doesn't mean chasra b'befnim, rather it means it's missing a piece. Rabbi Shimon Aimer, the reya will not be possible ad shetinakev leveses and painis. The hole has to not just be a little bit in, the hole has to be so deep that the puncture has to reach all the way in to one of the bronchial tubes. That's how deep the reya has to be punctured in order for it to be a trefa. It's not enough that the hole should. Oh, Mazel Tov! Wow. How you feeling? Good. The penetration has to be all the way into the main bronchial tube, not just to a small branch. Yosy Rabacha bar Abba kamedu Rafuna v'Yosy v'Ka'amar. Amar Rav Maloich. Rav Maloich said, Amar Rabbi Shua Levi, in the name of Rabbi Shua Levi, halacha k'Rab Shimon, that a nekah will only be a problem if it punctures into the main artery. Amar Lei. So he asked him back, Maloich Arba Kamrit. Do you mean Rab Maloich from Arabia? Is that the Rab Maloich that you're quoting said that the halacha is like Rab Shimon? Ein halacha k'Rab Shimon k'amar. What Rab Maloich said, if you're talking about Rab Maloich Arba, he didn't say halacha k'Rab Shimon. He said ein halacha k'Rab Shimon. Ki solek Rab Zora, when Rab Zora went up to Yisrael, asked Rab Bibi, he met Rab Bibi, the Yosy v'Ka'amar that was saying the following halacha. Amar Rab Maloich, Amar Rabbi Shua Levi, halacha k'Rab Shimon. Amar Lei Chai Damar, I'm swearing on your life, the Ana, v'Rab Chia bar Abba, v'Rab Asi, us three, Iklainan la'asrei the Rav Maloich. We actually came to the city of Rav Maloich. V'Amar Lei, we asked him point blank, I Amar Mar halacha k'Rab Shimon. Did you really say halacha k'Rab Shimon? V'Amar Lan, ein halacha k'Rab Shimon. And he said, thank you. And he said, ein halacha k'Rab Shimon. Amri v'at ma biyatcha. And he asked him, what do you have? What did you bring with you? What information did you bring with you? However, the Gemara is finalizing and paskening we will hold that a nekev in the reya will be a treva even if it doesn't penetrate all the way into the main something. Okay, so that takes care of the machlokes Rab Shimon and the Tanakama, a nekev in the reya, even if it's just a hole and it doesn't penetrate that deep into the main bronchial tube, it will still be a treifa.
Amen.
Nikva keva. Now we're getting into the stomach. So the keva is the last stomach of the four before it gets released into the small intestine. The chaylev that's on top of the keva, that's not from the chaylev that's osir to eat with a chi of karis. Rather, kahanim nahagu b'heter. The kahanim would eat it. Like Rabbi Shmuel said over in the name of his fathers that chaylev is not chaylev that's osir to eat. Now, why did it talk on kayanim? Because we know you always give the kayin the ziraya lechayayim and the keva. So generally, he's the one who has that. That's why we're discussing if he can eat it. But there's no difference between a kayin eating it. There's no din kachim on it. It's only a question of if it's chaylev. So we're saying that chaylev ala keva is he has a long stickle on exactly what fats we're talking about. That's very difficult. Unless I couldn't, with a cursory glance over it, it wasn't clear all the different layers of fat, but we'll have the basics as we learn through the Gemara. V'simanech Yishmael Kahana, Rabbi Yishmael, who himself was a Kohen, Masayah Kani, he paskins something that's favorable towards the Kahana. Mahi, where do you find that Rabbi Yishmael paskins Piska Halacha that favor Kahanim? The Tanya, we learn to the Brisa. It says, Koi Sevarchu Es B'nei Yisrael. We say that every day in Birchas Torah. Rabbi Shmuel Omer, we learn from here, Lamadnu Bracha Li Yisrael, Mipi Kayanim. We see that the bracha that the Kayanim give to Klal Yisrael. The Kayanim Atzman Lo Lamadnu, but we don't see explicitly in the Torah where the Kayanim received a bracha. Kishomer Vani Avarchem, it says V'samnu Shemi Al B'nei Yisrael Vani Avarchem. What does Vani Avarchem mean? That Hashem started telling the Kayanim, you bench Klal Yisrael, Havomer Kayanim Avarchem Yisrael, Vani HaKadosh Baruch Hu Mevarach LeKayanim. So there you see a bracha to the Kayanim. Rabbi Kiva Omer, no, that's not how you learn it. L'madu bracha Yisrael Mipi Kayanim. Vani Avarchem isn't saying that I'm going to give the Kohen a bracha. Vani Avarchem means I'm asking to the Kohanim, and just like the Kohanim are giving Yisrael a bracha, Vani Avarchem, I'm also going to give Klal Yisrael a bracha. Mipi Agvura Lo Shemanu, Kishoyim Vani Avarchem, Avoyim Kayanim Avarchem Yisrael, V'Akadosh Baruch Hu Maskim Al Yodam. So according to Rabbi Kiva, that Vani Avarchem is not referring to a bracha to the Kayanim, rather it's a bracha to Yisrael, and Rabbi Kiva bracha l'Kayanim inoli. How does he know the Kayanim's bracha? Where do you see a Kadosh Baruch Hu benches the Kayanim?
Part of Bnei Yisrael?
I'm sorry?
They're not part of Bnei Yisrael?
Well, if they're giving the bracha, so
They get benched.
that's right, they don't bench themselves. Amar Rab Nachman bar Yitzchak, we learn it from the pasuk where Kadosh Baruch Hu told Avram Avinu, V'avarcha mevarechecha. When you bench Klal Yisrael, I will bench you. Whoever benches Klal Yisrael, Hashem benches. Umay misayeya kahani, the mukila lebriches kahanim, b'makom bracha to Yisrael. Why are we saying that Rabbi Shmuel favors the kahanim? Because he talks about the kahanim getting a bracha from the Rebbeinu Shalom. According to Rabbi Kiva, kahanim also get a bracha from the Rebbeinu Shalom. So it's from a different pasuk, but they still have the same bracha. I'm sorry? Well, that's what Hashem was telling Avram. All different nations. Okay, so I think that's what the Gemara answers. So the reason why Rabbi Shmuel likes the Kahanim better, where do you see his approach favor the Kahanim? It's not like from a Vavach that includes all nations, like Dovi says, that the Kahanim, they're not on the Zak Klal at the end of the Mishnah. They're part of the action. They're the Vani Avarchem. They're right there in there with the bracha of the Yisrael. As Rashi says, Eitzel Birchas Yisrael. The Mashma Shemishbarchen Hein Im Hashar. They are part of Klal Yisrael. They're getting the bracha together with them. It's not that generic catch-all that if you're nice to my kids, I'll be nice to you. I think someone has to teach this pasuk to Trump. Zok Gemara, Rabbi Shmuel. So Oibazoi, Rabbi Shmuel, Shamar Mishum Avayis of Mahi.
I should tell you something. Because I'm stating that like it was supposed to run for the first line. I was reported by times for this week. And it was very, very sick. And I took him home from treatment. He fixed his heart rate. And he was telling me something about, I think it was shoulder day. And so he handed me, he asked me to wait outside, and he brought me back and I came home. He was saying, he brings from down from the Miller, right? And that he says here that Hashem loves the Jews so much that anyone who goes out of his way can bless a Yid, even one, so Hashem is on it right away. But bless that person, it's a contract written in the Torah, a covenant that only Kadosh Baruch Hu made with our nation. Not only with his own personally, but it's a contract with his own seed forever. So we're living here a subject of great benefit. By loving Jewish people and blessing them, even a Yid who loves Jewish people, right?
What are the benefits of this? You can also
invoking a special covenant that Kadosh Baruch Hu made with our forefathers. It's a big, easy career blessing Hashem's people. I'll bless those who bless my children.
Wow.
It doesn't have to be a goy. But he asked me to wait. I finished reading it, but Hashem reading it over.
Very nice. So Sazan gebenched. I was Sazan gebenched. Okay. Zok to Gemara.
He's telling me that when you get a bracha from the law, right? So it's very, very good bracha because the bracha. I said the bracha gives me a bracha, then I take him home. He said it's a very big bracha because to me that means the bracha blesses him.
Now, the Rashi tells us, it says, V'avarcha mevarechecha u'mekalelcha or. If Hashem knows that someone's going to give Klal Yisrael a bracha, He's going to give him a bracha even before. Why? Imagine someone who struggles for parnasa. He gives a bracha. He should always have parnasa, right? That would be his bracha. I know Moshe Reichel is never going to show up for the Moshe Reichel is a billionaire because he gives brachas with his asogis. So when someone's going to bench you, I'm going to bench them even before they bench you. So their bracha to you should have big asogis. But when a guy curses you, I'm only going to curse him afterwards because I don't want to show him what cursing really means. So first let him curse you. You shouldn't do so well this year, and then I'll give him maybe machla vitzuda. So since in this respect they both agree that the Kohen will get a bracha, so Rab Yishmael Shama Mishum Avaisov Mahi. Oh, I'm sorry. It says Rabbi Shmuel said Mishum Avaisov that the Kohen can eat the chelav shal gabe akeva. Where did he say this? The Tanya we learned. It says Eskol chelav asher ala kerev. The pasuk says regarding the korban shlomim. It says v'hikrav mizevach hashlomim isel Hashem es achelav hamachas es akerev v'eskol chelav asher ala kerev. These two items are chelav. They go on the mizbeach. One may not eat them. So what specifically are we referring to? Turning on Talmud Beis, L'havi chelav shel gabe dakin. Not only the chelav that's directly on the kerev, but it's also the chelav that continues on the intestines. And Rashi tells us it's one amma into the intestines. The intestines are very, very long. One amma into the intestines. Divrei Rabbi Shmuel. So let's have a look at Rashi. Chelav shel dakin, l'kavan arminian reish me'aya ba'amtza boy greira. One amma length of kishke that comes out of the stomach, that first amma you have to pull the chelav off. That's not allowed to be eaten. V'zeh chelav shel hadakin. That's what chelav shel hadakin is. So Rashi gives us a little bit of an anatomy lesson. The cave is a big round stomach. It's not round really. It's like half a moon shaped, but it's a roundish type of item. Then when the pipe comes out of it to go into the intestines, naturally it tapers. So when the area starts tapering to transition into the intestines, have a chelav shel hadakin, that area, the chelav wrapped around those intestines are usher ad amma, up to an amma l'divrei Rabbi Shmuel. Mepnei shechelav shel hakerev, the chelav on the kerev is called tila. Mechumah, it's connected to it, and that's the pasuk that we were just talking about. There's a chelav asher hakerev has to be placed onto the mizbeach. Because of marbeyu b'chalal mive'es kol hachelav. Es kol hachelav means not only the chelav that's on the kerev, also this chelav as it extends onto the first amma of the intestines. Of a chelav shel hakeva, but what's noticeably absent from Rabbi Shmuel's list of what may not be eaten is the chelav shel gabe hakeva, because Rabbi Shmuel is saying here that the chelav shel gabe hakeva may be eaten, only the chelav shel gabe hadakin may not be eaten. The Rabbi Shmuel mutter v'hainu misayeya kahani. So that's where Rabbi Shmuel said that chelav may be eaten. But Rabbi Kiva Omer lahavi chelav shel gabe hakeva. It includes the chelav shel gabe hakeva. So according to Rabbi Kiva, it wouldn't be able to be eaten. It's only Rabbi Shmuel who is paskening in favor of kaihanim. I'm going to show you that Rabbi Kiva and Rabbi Shmuel actually each take on the opposite position. Because it says as a chelav asher al hakerev, Rabbi Shimon Omer, ma chelav hamachas as hakerev, is a krum v'nikvlaf. The chelav that's on top of the kerev, actually it has a nice membrane, and therefore it easily peels off because a membrane separates it from the kerev, and therefore can be easily peeled off. Avkal krum v'niklaf would be considered chelav. Masha enkein, Rashi's krum dak yesh olav. It has a thin membrane. V'niklaf hakrum me'al hachelav, and you can peel this membrane off of the chelav. Sheina adik b'kokach. It's not like a marbleized steak where it's like integrated into the meat. It's on the surface. It could be removed. Avkal krum v'niklaf, that is chelav. Behind chelav shel gabe hakeva, v'chol chelav shel gabe hadakin. So this characteristic of krum v'niklaf applies to chelav shel gabe hakeva. So clearly here, Reb Shimon is saying that this is chelav and this is aser, And Rabbi Kiva Omer, Machelav Machasas Akerev Tusav. Tusav means it's like a beged, it's like it's in a plastic bag, a beged that wraps around the chelav, the krum, the membrane wraps around the chelav. Tosav krum v'niklav, af kol tosav krum v'niklav would be chelav, but that excludes of a chelav akeva, zok Rashi, eino tosav. Even though there might be some membrane, there might be niklav, but it's not sitting in a bag of membrane like a malbush. It's just little pieces of chelav are stuck onto the keva, but in little pieces. But it's not like in a separate bag, so to speak. And also that's on the intestines, extending out into the intestines. That's called the kanto, the chelav gets stuck there. And it's much more stuck to it. So the Kiva says I'll call toisav krum v'niklav, which would exclude the chelav shel gabe akeva. So you see, pun verkehrt. And v'shalach Ravin mishmeid Rabbi Yochanan kach hi hatzah shel Mishnah. Oh, by the way, there was a very important error I was supposed to make with the base, which tells us it's Rabbi Shmuel, not Rabbi Shimon, because we're talking about Rabbi Kiva and Rabbi Shmuel. So, and Ravin sent over in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, we have two Mishnayos that flip around the sheet of Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Kiva. So which is the right one? So he said the second one, Kachi Yatzah Shal Mishnah, V'Epach Kamaisa. And it's the first one you're Epach. It means Rabbi Shmuel, these were usher. So how could you tell me that the Rabbi Shmuel, Mishum Abraisov, is favoring the Kohanim and that he's being matter this chelav? Clearly, the second Braisa quotes Rabbi Shmuel as answering this chelav. How do you know that the second Mishnah that we quoted has more credibility than the first Mishnah? How do you know how to pick that? Because Shani Yacha, it gives a reason. Kivin the Katani Ma, right? It says Ma Chelav and Machasas Akerev. It's actually getting into the details and the explanation of each shita. So that Mishnah we would say is more accurate. So the problem is, Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Kiva. It's not Rabbi Shmuel who's being matter the Chelav L'Kayanim. It's Rabbi Kiva that's doing that. Of course, Rabbi Shmuel in these Mishnayos have told us quite clearly he held that chelav and it's usher. But Shmuel said over from his grandfathers, they held that chelav was mutter. But Rabbi Shmuel himself never said that the chelav was mutter. So when it says in Amar Aleph, Rabbi Shmuel, it means just that it was his father said that, but he himself did not agree with that. Amar Rav, chelav tar soisim. Chelav that's tahar has very sticky properties, and if it's over a hole, it will plug the hole. Now, I don't know why it's called chelav tahar. It's chelav mutter. It's not tamei because it's chelav and it's also to be eaten. For some reason, the Gemara calls it tahar, and I couldn't. Does he say a reason why? Chelav tahar is soisim because it has a sticky property. But tamei, if it's chelav that you're not allowed to eat, einay soisim, it would not plug.
It says here, the terms tamei and tahar are used in this sugya solely with reference to the permitted or forbidden status of the fat with regard to eating.
Right. So tamei doesn't mean tumah. It means also we know that. But the question is why does the Gemara use the word tamei? If anything, it's a higher level of kedusha. I'm not sure where that comes from. So chelav tar soisim. Tamei einay soisim. Rabbi Shesha says, echad zeh ve'echad zeh soisim. They all will plug the hole. Now Reb Zera didn't know the reason that we just explained, which is that the reason why chelav tar soisim is because it has a much stickier properties than consistency than chelav tamei. Reb Zera didn't know that. He thought there was some limud in it. So therefore he had the following shaila. What about the chelav of a chaya? It shares the same consistency. Whatever you have by a behema, sticky or not sticky, would be the same by the chaya. The only difference is by the chaya you're allowed to eat the chelav no matter what, because there is no prohibition to eat the chelav of a chaya. So davka omer chelav tar soisem v'hainami tar, and the chaylev of a chaya is all tar. So even what would normally be chaylev that's also in a behema is chaylev that's mutter in a chaya, v'hainami taru, and it's totally just in its kosher status. Or maybe it's because of its physical sticky properties, and that doesn't make a difference. If it's mutter or usher, this is a sticky fat versus that. What's the shaila? The shayr b'achila, just because by a chaya it's mutter b'achila, ahaduke le mahadik. It will not plug the hole, the chayla that normally is also, because that chaylev naturally is not as sticky. So it's not really a shayla. If you know the reasoning behind it, behind the distinction between chaylev tam and chaylev tar, there's no reason to even clarify a chayla, because it should be the same halacha. There was a hole that was blocked by chaylev tam, which we say does not do a good job of sealing coils. Also the kamei de Rava, and it was presented to Rava. Why in the world should we answer this? And I'll give you two good reasons why I should be matir. Chada, the Omer Rav Sheshes, chaylev tamei, nami soisim. Rav Sheshes holds that chaylev tamei is also going to do a good job. V'yoid, haTorah chasam amanim shel Yisrael. The Torah doesn't want to make things straight. The Torah wants Klal Yisrael to have meat. So therefore, Avada, he's going to allow it. So Rav Papa told Rava, what type of argument are you saying? Rav, first of all, Rav paskins that it's osir, v'isur deraisa, and we're talking about an isur deraisa here. V'yat amrit haTorah chasam amanim shel Yisrael. Oh, you know what? You're allowed to eat chazer treif. Why? haTorah chasam amanim shel Yisrael. What type of shayla is that? It's an isur deraisa. Minyoimi kanduka. Minyoimin was a gentleman who used to sell jugs. I believe Rashi says kanduka moicher kadam. He sold jugs. Iglalei Bistika de Duvsha. He had a.
How did he get into the Gemara?
This because listen to it, because he had a big shalal halacha. He had a jug of honey that was left open, meaning now a snake could have eaten from it, and that would have left venom there. Also the kamei de Rava. He came to ask Rava, what do I do with this honey? Honey was very expensive. Omar, I think the Gemara even in Bava Basri discusses if you have a jug of oil and you end up with a jug of honey, and his jug breaks, you're allowed to spill out your oil to catch his honey, and he'll pay you for your oil, because the honey is worth a lot of money. So as the committee Rava, what should be the problem? Chada, for first of all, the Tanan, the Mishnah says, only shloisha mashkim are subject to an isser, because you need to be concerned about a snake. Asur mishum gilui. And what are those? Hayayin v'amayim v'acholov. But dvash is not on the list, so I don't see a problem. V'shakar mashkim u'tarim. V'yoid, again, haTorah chasam amanim shel Yisrael. Hashem doesn't want you to lose your honey. Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak l'Rava. I don't understand Rab Shimon, who we're going to quote at the moment, holds that there is a problem of gilui, even by dvash. V'sakonis nefoshes. We're talking over here about a sakonis nefoshes if you're choshesh l'gilu. V'yat omrit, haTorah chasam amanim shel Yisrael. Now is not the time for chasam amanim shel Yisrael. It's a stomach poison. Zok Gemara, Rab Shimon Mahi, where did Rab Shimon say that there's a problem of gilui even by dvash? The Tanya Chamisha ain't bad mishum gilui. There are 5 mashkim that there's no issue of gilui. Tzir, which is the sharp juice of a fish. The chometz is vinegar. Shemen is oil. Udvash and honey. Umurais is also some type of fish juice. These are all things that have to do with fish. Rabbi Shimon argues, and he says, "Avhein yesh ben mishum gilui." So Rabbi Shimon knows the problem. So you're going to be mekel because we're talking over here about a sekonis nefashos, and more so. Rabbi Shimon, ani ra'isi nachash sheshasat tzir b'tzidan. I saw with my own eyes that a nachash drank tzir. So there is a problem of gilui even by tzir. Amar told him, "Shat Yahava." That was a snake that was an abnormal snake. The ein mavin rayim in ashoitim. You can't bring a raya from an animal that has mental issues. It must have been a drunk snake. He probably drank too much wine first, and then he said, "Then he went to drink syrup." So they told him, "Oidu li miyos b'tzir." So they told him, "Shimon, at least be agreeable to us that by tzir there's no problem of gilui." Because he wanted to say, I saw a snake ate it. says, at least be made that there's no problem with about your why? If they would have water that was exposed, that might have been eaten by a snake, they would treat the water with a chlorine compound that would kill any germs. What was their chlorine compound that they used? They would actually put sear into it, so sear was used as an agent to kill any venom. So at least be made it to me that there's no problem of gili by sear, because even though you saw a snake, but whatever went in there, the sear has properties that will neutralize that. So they told him back, at least to be murdered by Dvash, the Rab Shimon ben Elazar Koikava say that it's mutter. The Dvash is no gili, but the Ma'aseh no one was murdered. So you have a Rab Shimon here who says that there is a problem of gili even by Dvash. The Tanya v'chein hay Rab Shimon Elazar oisem b'Dvash. So we have a very big problem over here because how could you tell me by Dvash to be Mekel? There's a Shalom Sakamas Nefashos, and Reb Shimon and Reb Shimon ben Elazar hold that you're not allowed to drink that because it could be venomous. Omer Nachman, Chelev ha'osoi kikoiva, Chelev that's like a hat, Einei soisim. Heicha, where is this Chelev that's made like a hat? Where would you find that Chelev? Amrulei Chiti dikarkashta. Zot Rashi, what are these places? Chiti dikarkashta, Chelev shal cholcheles hamatzirei. That's on the colon. Chelev that's on the colon of the animal. Shekor tivachaya ois asu kartin kein chitin. It comes in little clumps. It's not one big layer of fat. It's little clumps. V'im nikva, and if the colon of an animal had a hole in it, that's nikva dakin. That's a nevela. The nikva v'oisei chelev soisva, and that chelev plugs the hole, loy mahani v'treifa. Okay, the kartin agun, and these little nods of fat are round, k'meikova, like a hat. That's why the Gemara describes them as like a hat. Okay, zog to Gemara weiter. Those who say it's tarfish adaliba, he actually showed it in one of his videos. It's one of the arteries that go from the heart to the liver, I think. So there's a whole bunch of fat there. When he was showing the circus, there was one that was by tarfish adaliba. So that's where it would be a problem, because that artery, if it gets punctured, it would be a problem, and even though it was covered with this fat. I heard two halachas from Rav Nachman, but I don't have clarity precisely what he said. Because he said something about a fat that was called chimtza, and he said something about a fat that was bar chimtza. That sounds almost like kamtza bar kamtza, right? Chatzasim, one of these fats have a sticky property that would plug holes. The chad lo sosim, and the one doesn't have these sticky properties. But I didn't remember which is which. Rav Huna bar China, Rav Huna bar Rav Nachman, Omar, they said bar chimtza is going to be soisim, and chimtza is not soisim. Omar Tavos, and how could you tell? How could you remember? It's the bar chimtza is better because the bar chimtza will have properties that will plug holes. Now we need to know high chimtza by bar chimtza. What is what? How do we know what's what? So we're going to define a fat that plugs holes, and then we'll know that must be bar chimtza. Toshma Damar Nachman, Inu Michli Achli. In Eretz Yisrael, they even eat this. He was talking about a certain type of fat that in Eretz Yisrael they held this wasn't chaylev and you were allowed to eat. Uladidon, and you want to say even we hold that it is chaylev tamei, even though in Bnei Baba our meaning is not to eat it, but to go to such an extreme to argue on the Bnei Yisrael and to say mistim lami like sosun, that we're not going to say. Because we know that it's the chaylev tamei that's not sosun. So although we're machmer over the Bnei Yisrael and we say we're not going to eat this, but if a zayvite, we're going to say it's sosim. So Rashi says, so this was the fat that he must have been talking about, which is bar chimtza, which although we don't eat it, it will still have properties that will plug holes. The akashta kula amalei pligi the osir. Ki pligi da yasra. You have a stomach that's in a banana shape. It doesn't come to a point on either end, but it's in a banana shape. So akashta means on the bow, which would be the one across the bottom. That fat across the bottom, everybody holds is chaylev that's aser. The yasra, there's also chaylev on the inside of the crescent, and there ikodami kipligi da yasra. The machlokes here is on that fat. Zok the Gemara, ikodami. There are those who hold the yasra kulam pligi that it's mutter, and kipligi da kasha. They're only arguing on the outer fat. So there's a machlokes which fat is chaylev. If you look at the picture, there's a big layer of fat underneath the crescent, which is like at the belly of the animal, and then above the crescent, there's inside the crescent there's also some fat there. Kiyod Amar of Avia Amar Rebbe Amar Bami Mekamsen. Mekamsen means that you cut that away, and there are parts that you cut part of it and you can keep part of it. I'm not sure if we should continue. Maybe we should continue just till Tanya, because we're running a little bit late. So Zok to Gemara. Kipli Yida Kashta. So Rashi says over here, Mekamta means Noitlin Mimenu Ma'at L'mayla Me'ahuda Yasra Mipnei Shechelev HaKerev Shechev Elov. So that fat, that the Yasra, that's on the top of the crescent, on the inside, you just trim it because you want to make sure not to have any fat that's prohibited that's connected to that fat. So you trim it and you can use that fat. Amar Bavia, Havakim the Kamei Rebbe, the Rabami. I was in front of Rabami. Come to Vahavalei. They brought it to him, the Ochal, and he ate it. So vice versa, that the Yasra was mutter fat. Shamed Rav Chanina, the Shamed Rav Chanina, Havakoi Kamei Rav Chanina. He was standing in front of Rav Chanina. Amar Lo, and Rav Chanina told him, Kamoitz, trim it, and have a daichel, and I want to eat it. Chaz Yudava Kamachsam. He saw that his shamus was hesitating to follow his orders to feed him that fat. Amalei said, I see already that you must be from Bavel, and your mouth would not eat that fat, so Blum Shah, they throw the whole thing out. It's okay. If it makes you feel uncomfortable, forget it. Okay, we'll stop here, and we'll be mamshech tomorrow. So tomorrow I'm only here on Zoom.
How do you set this thing up? I don't know how to do it.
I'll show you exactly how to do it.